From a voter in Madbury, this is a question for Jackie Cilley, and we'll have Fenton respond afterwards. This is for Jackie. Over the last 4 years, there's been 4 pieces of legislation introduced regarding groundwater, 3 in the Senate and 1 in the House. What has actually been accomplished that has changed anything in the law or in rules regarding groundwater? And you have 3 minutes to respond to that.
Thank you for that question. It's one that I'm intimately familiar with because I co-chair the SB 155 Large Groundwater Withdrawal Commission. As we have introduced legislation, we have increasingly elevated the role of the municipalities into that process. One of the things that we've heard, we had 9, one of the subcommittees of the Large Groundwater Withdrawal Commission had 9 open forums around the state, long, arduous forums where people all had their say, and we took all of that. There's a report that has now come out from the what's called the HB 1353 Commission, and I'm very proud of it. It is going to be it has recommended a whole new approach to the management of groundwater and a partnership between our Department of Environmental Services and our municipalities, and it will take a watershed approach with regional planners in the mix. I think it's an innovative process. I think that it will save money by reducing the amount of controversy that goes on around large groundwater withdrawals. And I would close by saying that New Hampshire has the most restrictive large groundwater withdrawal standards in the country, something that our towns and cities are particularly concerned about, and I think thankful that they have that protection, but I know that many of them in District 6 want more.
And Fenton, we'll let you respond to that as well.
Well, first of all, the big issue in Barrington and Nottingham, especially, and Madbury is affected by that as well, is the USA Springs bottling plant approval and the ongoing, I believe it's now a 6-year-old fight on whether that's going to be allowed to be pumping large amounts of water in Nottingham. I first of all believe that it should be a local decision of the local town, first of all, on whether large groundwater withdrawals are allowed within their town or city. And I think that should be the first criteria. DES does have a major stake in that. They can provide input and resources on that. And I do believe, and here's an area I agree with Senator Cilley, I think our groundwater withdrawal regulations in New Hampshire are adequate and probably need some small tweaking to allow towns and cities to create their own groundwater withdrawal requirements.
All right, thank you for that response. This is a question for Fenton, and then we'll have Jackie respond to it as well. You have 3 minutes, Fenton. We may have touched on this a little bit, but we'll give the person the question. It's from a voter in Nottingham. It says, how will fewer regulations and less stringent regulations, particularly for the construction industry, increase personal freedom, and how does that protect the consumer and constituents? And that's for Fenton.
Did you reread that?
Yes, I will. How will fewer regulations and less stringent regulations, particularly for the construction industry, increase personal freedom, and how does that protect the consumer and constituents?
Okay. I am in the construction industry. I don't know if that's why this person asked me that question. And I can relate to a few of those. And our company, Groen Builders, has been in business for 10 years. In that 10 years, the regulatory cost to us has increased the price of our homes to our consumers by over $5,000 per home. There are a few of those that are necessary life safety regulations, a few. But I'm going to give you an example, and I've been accused of not caring about children for this one, so I'll explain it carefully. We have a requirement now that every residential structure we build has to have child-proof outlets. Now, let me explain what that is. You take your electrical cord and you push it in and you give it a quarter-turn twist, and then you can push it the rest of the way in and it keeps the child from accessing that outlet. Now, I have 7 children. We felt a very grave responsibility to protect our children. So we went to Walmart and we bought a bag of 50 of those little round plastic plugs with 2 prongs on, and we stuck it in there. You see, my children had a mommy, so they didn't need a nanny state. And some of these regulations are just plain nanny state. We don't need them. And that's where we need to look at those regulations and address them. And now I want to just relate on the broader picture. What should we be doing about that? We have a requirement for any major work that's going to involve the environment, that we have an environmental impact study. I think we should seriously consider a regulatory impact study where any new regulation that comes in place that's going to cost money to the state or to the citizens of New Hampshire should go through a rigorous regulatory impact study. It should evaluate the cost and the benefit of those regulations. And if the benefit doesn't exceed the cost, and in fact, if it were a life safety issue, the benefit would exceed the cost. But that should be looked at, and if it doesn't pass that rigorous test, those regulations shouldn't be increased or added. And I think that type of an approach, just looking at it, that we don't need to have the state telling us to put child-proof outlets in a house. And this is just one example. I could bore you with about 15 or 20 of them in my business of things that I believe are unnecessary and don't add to safety if we have responsible citizens, which I believe we do. We're a live free or die state, and that's what I stand for.
Thank you for your response. Jackie, do you want to respond? Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I've got the question.
Okay.
I think that, first of all, child-proof electrical outlets at $2 a pop that save potentially 1,000 lives of children a year and countless burns and organ damage, as was printed in Foster's the other day, seems, not exactly the best example of overreach of government. Having been in this position, I could certainly, I'm sure that Mr. Groen and I could sit down and agree with there are places that, that are an overreach. Oftentimes what happens is it's the industry themselves that come in and, and advocate for this, telling us they need it, they're the experts. We find out later maybe they're putting up some barriers to their competition. Always a difficult thing. I have never seen Mr. Groen at the State House asking me to bring a bill to lower those standards or to get rid of that. So, while it may bother him, I guess it hasn't bothered him enough to, see a state senator and ask to have things changed. The question initially was, how does lowering the bar with regulation affect individuals' freedoms? And that is a delicate balancing act. Regulation generally is put into place for worker safety, for consumer safety, and to protect the rights of individuals as well as to protect the rights of other businesses. We have laws, for example, that prohibit unfair competition between businesses, and that every business should care about because it protects them and their ability to continue to pursue a livelihood. When those rights come into conflict, then we have a problem. So the hope is, as a legislator, that in every way possible, that I balance those requirements and regulation. And remember, I also participate with my husband in a small business, so I get this. We should have only so much regulation on business as is necessary to protect workers, to protect consumers, to protect the public, and to protect other businesses. And when that fails, we should be approached by those people that are being affected, and we should look to change that.
Thank you for your response.